When in doubt, that is always the choice.
I mean, in as much as I could have said like, hey, let's go to this show instead of, in addition to, and it would have been like, yeah, that's Gucci. Let's go to this other show.
Yeah.
But,
Listen, when your choices are fun, family-like, stoned crowd versus mall punk, that's not even an option.
to be fair, mall punk, but 20 years removed from the Hot Topic days. So we brought it down a few pegs.
Yeah. So there's chill involved, but mostly because the joints don't work well enough to be punk.
Right, exactly.
Well, it's fine. In my estimation, the attitudes didn't work well enough to be punk even at the time. So,
I mean, I wouldn't have called them, but mall punk. But that's a whole nother.
It's as close.
A whole other show.
It's as close of a somewhat derogatory genre as I could come up with in the moment.
It's very suburban emo in the best possible way.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, I think.
Yep, none of that is my
delightful. Scene. Yeah. No, it's not crunchy enough for you. There are no harsh vocals.
Nope. I don't need harsh vocals, as we will find out soon enough today.
And maybe one of us does need harsh vocals, as we will also find out. Right here in the Fairly KickAss podcast.
Dun, 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 dun.
I'm glad you did that because I was going to try something real stupid.
I am disappointed now that I cut that off.
Yeah, moment's gone, Floyd. Moment's gone.
Well, this whole podcast is basically a series of moments that are gone. Listeners, as you will come to know if you haven't listened to this here show. My name is Zach. His name is Dan. His name is Jay. There are two hises over there in that Thar region. We make up the 3/4 of the Fairly KickAss podcast family, along with producer Nikki, who makes up, well, it's 25% of the people and like 90% of the actual effort and goodness that go into the show.
Yeah.
The show, speaking of this podcast, talk about music and music-related things. Today, talking about the month that was. We do monthly reviews. We are doing our reviews of the month. I almost said the state of August. The 51st state, by the way, guys, if you didn't know, just voted today, August.
I hate to argue with you on your own show, Zach, but there are 53 states with Alaska and Rhode Island.
Oh, Cutman. See, there's a monitor right underneath your camera there?
Yeah.
That's Zach. I'm Dan.
I missed one.
Well, I mean, August.
Yes, that's one. Thank you. The 54th host of the Fairly KickAss podcast. So music, right?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Allegedly. We like to do album reviews, which we will start with. We then get into newly charting singles in the top 40 of the Billboard Hot 100. I don't know why I'm explaining this as if this is like the very first show we've done. Like, people know the deal by now. If anyone is new, then leave. Don't. Like, you're making a mistake.
I got this. If you do happen to be new, I think the best thing for you to do after you listen to what we tell you is hot and new for the month of August is to then scroll backwards down that podcast feed, whichever of your popular apps that you happen to be in. Check out a couple of our previous episodes. Could it be a top 5 that we do? Could it possibly be a re-rack? Could it be a re-rank, which is something we just figured we'd try it? We throw a lot of stuff against the wall. Tell us if it all sticks. But do so by listening to more of the Fairly KickAss podcast.
I mean, either way, no matter what they click on, they still got to hear our stupid voices.
Shut up. I'm trying to sell it.
Well, now they know. So, cat's out of the bag. It's us. It's assholes all the way down.
Was that a John Green reference?
Aren't you proud of me? Aren't you?
I really am.
Let's go. Outstanding work, sir.
Let's go.
I love it.
The show's going to be.
How did you find the music in August to be? I don't know who I was asking in that moment, but either one of you can talk.
If it was thrown to me, I would say great. on average. I don't remember, and this is rare for me, but I do not remember listening to anything that I did not like. Or that's not true. I don't remember listening to anything that I explicitly didn't like. Everything was either, it's fine, or it was really good. My honorable mentions list for the month is probably like 20 albums deep.
Nice.
I think it's a record for me. So
I limited what I was putting on my honorable mentions list for that very reason. Like I went for specific things. So my honorable mentions list is only 5 deep, but I felt pretty similarly on the record side of things, where there was a lot of good, a little bit of great, and I mean the normal amount of meh. But I do feel like there was enough almost hilariously bad to make it fun too.
I must have missed all of that because I do not remember.
I would imagine you did so intentionally.
Maybe so.
Like there were certain releases that could have easily been avoided by me, and I said, you know what? I'm doing that.
God, I wish I had that luxury.
Right? Your month couldn't have been great.
Yeah.
It was extremely medium. Extremely. If we were relating it to spice, it was like the fire sauce at Taco Bell. There's there's some heat, but not enough to actually make you go, hey, things are hot. I just don't have it's not you and I are more spicy food people.
Yeah.
So you know where I'm at with
yeah.
They call it fire sauce, but it's more or less like, here's a pepper.
And maybe some vinegar. But
yes.
So as long as you're not talking about taste, because that fire sauce is the only real reason to go to Taco Bell.
Yeah, no, spice levels, not
yeah,
taste.
okay.
Yeah, no.
Cool. Well, I mean, that's better than I thought it was going to be based on what I expect to have been on the charts. I didn't look. No spoilers for me. I didn't look.
Here's the interesting thing, though. What hit the top of the chart? Not a whole lot. It was a very heavy layover month. A lot of stuff just kind of hung around and floated. Already, where I can tell you that there's some stuff that you guys may have listened to that came out at the end of the month and is now hanging strong on the September charts that I'll have to talk about in a month. But the stuff from earlier in the summer really kind of stuck around.
Okay.
So not a whole lot to choose from.
Honestly, I ain't mad at that.
Yeah.
Especially with some of what those songs are.
Indeed.
Yeah, I figured one album for sure would chart most, if not all of, and I just took a quick peek and it looks like that was the case. So I'm assuming that album is going to make up at least a decent amount of the stuff that you talk about. But yeah, I'm getting ahead of us.
Yeah. Let's talk about the records first.
Indeed. I will start us off with a record, an album that I listened to for the first time, what is it now? Almost 8 o'clock local, 3 hours ago. Because I did not realize that we have different ways and means of knowing what albums come out every year. Or Jesus Christ. We have ways and means of knowing. I'm very discombobulated if you couldn't tell. We have ways and means of knowing what albums come out every month. And this one, nowhere. Just completely under the radar. I don't know if it was advertised, if there was any sort of knowledge beforehand, or if it just kind of dropped all of a sudden like, oh, hey, I was actually looking up something for my number one album, a little foreshadowing there, and just accidentally happened upon this. And I'm really glad I did, because for me, it is somewhat of a homer pick, not a homer pick, but somewhat of a pick of an artist that I truly love. And when that happens, I like to grade at least a little bit on a curve to say, is this really as good as I thought it was? Or is it just I really like this artist and I'm just, going to assume everything that they put out is good? Luckily, it was as good as I had hoped it would be. We're talking about one of the realest rappers in the rap game right now. One that has lived the life that he talks about in his songs. Everything is completely authentic. Everything is completely real. And you feel that authenticity. And it helps that he is also a master wordsmith too. His wordplay, his bars, his delivery, his flow, stupendous. One of the best rappers that criminally few people have ever heard of. And that is Mozzie. My number 3 album was Brash Dummies. I will say that if there's anything that held this album back for me, it was the featured artists. They weren't bad, they were fine, but they were just fine. And next to someone so dense, so talented like Mozzie, it really shines a spotlight into the difference between the two. Those tracks still obviously had Mozzie on them, and those parts were still great. It's just that the rest of those tracks took a little bit of a hit. But ultimately a small quibble in an otherwise great album. As far as tracks go with the solo effort. Got him. However you would pronounce it, you youths. Or also Off the Hip, which is one with a featured artist, but I thought the best featured artist on the entire album, who was D Barbie. Absolutely killed. Both D Barbie's verse and Mozzie's verse were just absolute stunners in that song. So yeah, go check those out.
I have just added it to my list because I missed that album too. As you were talking, I was trying to go through the list of releases, and I'm like, who is he talking about? Because I couldn't figure it out based on my listening, and then it dawned on me. Yeah. I missed the release completely.
That's weird. That's rare that we just literally don't see it. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I might ignore something, but I wouldn't have ignored a release from Mozzie either. So yeah, weird. I will be going back to check that out.
Nice. Yeah. Curious about how you like it.
Yeah, me too.
I am also curious about how you like and how I would like and everyone else will like your number 3.
I don't think any of my list is going to be a surprise to any of our longtime listeners. It's all kind of definitely in my wheelhouse. But let's start with, by the way, I just threw these on a doc in no particular order, and I'm kind of winging what I'm saying about it. But I'm going to start with my number 3 record going to Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds for Wild God. I was kind of hesitant going into this latest work, not because I expected anything bad, except the Seeds, but because there was no way that after like this long in the game, 46 years in the game, that he had really anything new to show us. He sort of become this iconic figure in the alternative rock industry, like taking the mantle built by Bowie and Cohen and Lou Reed and all that. But I needn't have worried. Wild God is no less transcendent than we've come to expect from the man and his Seeds. The basic premise being that, why don't we all just be gods? Why don't we all just treat the world around us, from rivers and lakes to city buildings to frogs, why don't we treat them as if they were treasures to be marveled at and endlessly enjoyed? Let's just be gods. Sometimes relevant, sometimes not. I will say that the use of the choir on the record was a really cool addition, and it sort of like put alongside his like anti-crooner vibe. Makes these gods seem at times very real and very worthy of respect. It does come across a little preachy at times, like if you view it through that lens, where like these wild gods are real and there's all this choir in the background, then it comes across as a very preachy thing. But that's not all necessarily bad. And I will say, I found a review of it from between the no, that's not it. I don't remember the name of the website. That's terrible. I will quote it and not know who to quote, but it said, think of church choirs if church choirs had rock and roll histories and all hung out with PJ Harvey.
Man, the dream. It almost seems that, and we're talking about 2 different artists. We're talking about 2 completely different eras, different genres. But Nick Cave always seemed like that guy to me in his genre, in his discography, that was like, this is one of the best artists that criminally few people are familiar with.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm alone in that sentiment, but he just he's always been there, but he's just never been put on the pedestal that other artists that have come and gone before and after him have been.
Yeah. Well, I would say, he's probably, I don't know that he's underknown. I would think that the mainstream, wow, I hated saying that word, finds him too deeply weird for most ears. which honestly makes me like him more. But
Sure.
I do think that he has as much in common, maybe not in the way of theatrics, but the whole taking on different personas and stuff like Bowie did, but with the old man persona of Leonard Cohen underneath the whole thing. Like, it's just, I don't think there is a good description for Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, except to say that I liked my phrase anti-crooner.
Yeah.
I liked that. That's what he is to me.
Yeah, one of those that's really fucking hard to put in a box, and
Yeah.
and that's one of the biggest compliments that I could think to give to an artist.
Yeah. And if you haven't checked out Wild Gods, it's fun. It's very theatrical, very sweeping. Honestly, he's more in the mix with the band on this record than he has been on previous. His voice isn't way out front, which gives it makes everything feel bigger, I think.
I do really quickly want to share a very brief review of this album that I've came across. The review says, quote, "There's no fucking around with this record. When it hits, it hits. It lifts you. It moves you. I love that about it." That coming from, let's see, Nick Cave. Oh. Awkward. Like the confidence to say, like, this shit is the bomb.
Yeah.
Like, and he's not wrong. he's not all wrong.
If you want someone to say roughly the same thing in the most roundabout, rambling, and incoherent way you can possibly imagine, our good friends over at Dick Shorts have you covered.
They have made that into a science.
Yeah. I couldn't get through the whole review, actually. It was hard to read. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about.
Will my number 2 be hard to read?
I don't know. You tell me.
Actually, yes, because half of it is in a different language.
Oh, God.
So, hey, some way you just make the segues work.
Yeah.
So my number 2 album comes from an artist who has, in Australia, in that part of the world, is pretty darn well known, just not as much here stateside. And for as long as we've been doing this, we tend to branch out to artists in, different parts of the world, different regions, different countries. So I would have thought that someone of this stature would have come across my desk at some point. Apparently not. We're talking 17 ARIA awards. Think ARIA awards like the Australian counterpart of the US Grammys. 4 of those coming home with wins. This album representing her 8th studio album, nestled in between countless TV appearances, movie appearances, several local to Australia, several worldwide releases. The Matrix Reloaded, maybe you've heard of that. She had a part in that. She's done theater work, including Rent and Little Shop of Horrors and Hairspray. She's basically done everything. And it is criminal how I have just completely missed out on the apparently illustrious career of Christine Anu. But now I know about it, and I am super excited and super happy that I was able to learn about the previous work that she's done, and also about my number 2 album called Waku Mineral a Minale. Part upbeat, bubbly pop performed in the English language, part very heartfelt traditional music performed in the language native to her Torres Strait Islander heritage. The album was somewhat of an not an autobiography, but a depiction / ode / tribute to her grandfather, who was a very large part of her life. And it's just beautiful, flowing. I cannot say enough good things about it because it was a really difficult album to describe. And since we're on this podcast, we have to say more than I liked this and I don't know why. But I like this in a lot of ways. I can't really articulate the reasons. It just was one of those that you just listen to and come out of the other side just feeling better, just feeling happier, feeling content, feeling fulfilled with what just hit your earballs.
That's enough for me. I mean, honestly, just that sentence, I like this and I don't know why. That immediately intrigues me.
Sometimes you need the mashed potatoes kind of music. And this was definitely that.
Nice. Oddly enough, the South Pacific features heavily in our lists. Interesting. In combination because, Nick Cave.
Yeah.
And Christine, I know, and there's more yet to come.
I am excited. I know I have at least one or two Australian artists in my honorable mentions as well. But again, getting ahead of myself, I keep doing that. Before we get to the honorable mentions, we have to get, my friend, to your number 2 album of the month.
Yeah. Where to start with this one? How about gospel groove metal? How about Lenny Kravitz does death metal? How about Tool toys with electronics?
Ooh.
Zeal and Ardor tends to be loud and upfront, and Grafe, not Grief, the I comes after the E. Grafe is no exception to this. In the origins of Zeal and Ardor, like, the outfit was intended to be a blend of traditionally African American music and black metal mashed together. Previous records have been stunning to listen to. Both of those elements, the traditionally African American music and the black metal, both kind of take a step back on this album. But stepping into the center ring is like a more accessible, and I'm going to say this, and you're going to say that's not accessible. It's more of a pop doom emo experience.
That's not accessible.
Songs like Fend You Off keep things more in the like pop gospel realm. It's still loud, but it's very like easy to listen to. Then there's Are You the Only One Now? Takes some time to have these moments where black metal really takes over. Songs like Go Home My Friend go hard into the spiritual blues sound, adds like a chain gang rhythm section and some sweet keyboard licks. And as such, is one of the coolest tracks on the record. My personal favorite, I think, at the moment is Clawing Out, which is more of like a dysrhythmic 9 Inch Nails deep cut with sharp edges. Metalheads seem to be upset that this album is not as metal as previous recordings. Those that want more of that blues and gospel seem upset at the direction as well. And I'm just happy that this crew is doing interesting things and keeping it awesome. This record is all over the place, and I'm here for it.
It was one that I definitely listened to, and I didn't write any notes about it. I should have, just because of how unique it was. It didn't grab me enough to end up in the honorable mentions, and I wish I remembered why. It sounds like I'm going to have to give it another listen. It might be one of those that really hits the second or third time around.
It's definitely an odd record. So like if it strikes you and you're in a mood and you really want something that you can like bang your head to, or something that you're going to dance to, it's not any of those things necessarily. Right. Unless you have my weird inability to dance to a rhythm. So the off rhythm stuff is good. I really enjoyed the record though. I've listened to it several times.
Nice.
And it's one of the strangest and coolest albums that I listened to this month.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm going to pencil that in for a re-listen then, probably tonight. I seem to be in the headspace of weird is good, so
nice.
Or at least non-traditional is good.
Sure.
Done and done.
Well, what decision did you make? What was your favorite album from August 2024?
It was a surprise to me.
Oh.
Not in the sense that this was an artist that I didn't think that I would like. Was I the only person that didn't know until recently that Killer Mike had a gospel group that toured with him?
Nope. I'm learning this now.
Okay. I feel better about not having had this information previous to fairly recently. Killer Mike has a gospel group that tours with them. They're called the Mighty Midnight Revival, which is a badass name for anything, especially a gospel group. I mean, come on. They add the perfect dimension to pair with Mike's, essentially, for this album, what amounts to street sermons, for lack of a better term. They add a haunting quality to what, frankly, would already be an amazing album without them. But if you're already in for a penny, why not go in for the full pound? And that's what Killer Mike did on my number 1 album of August 2024. Killer Mike as Michael and the Mighty Midnight Revival with the album Songs for Sinners and Saints. And Jesus Christ. And I mean that in the literal sense, because this is also a very heavily religiously themed album. And maybe religious is not the way to describe it. Maybe church is a stronger way to describe it, because this feels like an album that could be the soundtrack to a church that I would gladly attend. It was very real. It was very, like I talked about the authenticity in the Mozzie record, there was a lot of authenticity here as well. One of the finer songs on the album was Exit 9, the scenic route version. Kind of an important note there that there were a few tracks, I want to say 3, that were basically reworks of tracks from the previous album called Michael from 2023. Took those songs, improved them. I don't even want to say improve them, that's not fair. Changed them, updated them, and brought in new featured artists for some of the tracks. Made them different enough that they functioned not as remixes, not as, self covers, but as basically brand new material because of how different directionally they were taken. That song, Exit 9, specifically featuring Blast and Offset, Mike, for his part, discussing the passing of, by all accounts, Atlanta royalty Enrico Wade, who passed away earlier this year. We get deep, we get heavy, it is a very emotional album. And it might have been a time and place thing for me, as just having really resonated with that and really, kind of needed that in the moment. But yeah, it was just a beautiful listen, and there will be a very tough battle to dethrone this as my favorite album of the year. It certainly has taken that slot.
Wow. I'm pissed.
Oh no.
Here's the thing. When we go through to decide what we're going to listen to on these lists, you have to have some criteria. Right, you can't just listen to everything. There's way too much music. And I saw Michael and the Mighty Midnight Revival in an album called Songs for Sinners and Saints. And I glossed over it because it seemed super religious and I wasn't in the mood for a gospel record at the time. Right, that was way back at the beginning of the month. I instead listened to the Tones and I record, or the Smashing Pumpkins record, or the X record, or Khalid. Really, name something that came out that week, and I listened to 6 or 7 albums that day. How that one got away from me is infuriating.
It was hard to know. I don't know that I knew, looking at the album, at least on Wikipedia, if you look at the album releases list, it doesn't explicitly mention that this is a Killer Mike album or that he's affiliated in any way.
No, but I'll bet if you hovered your mouse over the blue thing, it would have a picture of him on it.
It's exactly what I just did, as if on cue.
Yeah.
Yeah, we come back to it every month. It's so hard to have listened to. You mentioned the Biba Doobie record. Didn't listen to it.
Wow.
Would have loved to. Probably would have made my top 3 if I had, but there are just not enough hours in the day. And that's honestly a really good problem to have.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If you got to have a problem, that's the one.
Yeah. So yeah, we both got stuff. We both got homework to do after this episode.
I'm so mad right now. You have no idea.
Well, I'm certain that no matter how good you think the Killer Mike album is, I'm certain that your number 1 album would have been just as good, if not better. So
yeah, I'm sure that Killer Mike would have slotted in here at some point, but honestly, you know what I'm going to put at my number 1 spot. Basically continuing on in their chameleonic, hyper-prolific milieu, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard have done it again. This is their first release in 2024, so maybe hyper-prolific is a bit hyperbolic. But since it's their first release, they put a lot of effort into it, and they've provided us with what is arguably their least odd contribution in a long time, eschewing their penchant for psychedelic carnival jam metal. Flight B741, that's the name of the album, Flight B741, is a pretty straightforward psych boogie blues performance. And that would be comfortable alongside the Doobie Brothers or the Black Crowes or the Guess Who. Well, there's always an element of fun and humor in all of their material. This record kind of epitomizes the idea of getting together with your friends and just jamming until you feel better. There's some heavier content lyrically. In the song Raw Feel, they discuss what the hard shit feels like. That's needles and pills. Or in like Field of Vision, he becomes a silly Billy who lies to God. The content of the lyrics never really seems to be reflected in the music. There's a lightness and jamminess in all of the music that just keeps everything feeling light. And truthfully, the content is said in such a goofy manner that it hides the depth, which we love that. Sad songs that don't sound sad. That's one of our favorite things. And this falls into that. They're not sad necessarily, but they're deeper. And I very much enjoy it. It's still loud. It's still funky. It's still groovy. And it's still King Gizzard, just a little more pop accessible.
I think that's the part that surprised me the most when I listened to the album is just that, the accessibility.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that in a derisive way whatsoever. I thought like this album is like if you looked up the term bop in the dictionary, like this whole album might be right there. It was surprising for a band with albums titled such as Ice Death Planets, Lungs, Mushrooms, and Lava. Yep. This didn't really fit. But that again didn't take away from it. It's weird that like this is almost an experimental King Gizzard album, experimenting with a more normal sound, but it still works because they could do any type of music and it would sound grand. Yeah.
I get this is sort of like their roots. I mean, it's kind of roots music. So this is sort of like hearkening back to where they started. Very jammy, very bluesy. My favorite album title for them, by the way, is the Petrodragonic Apocalypse, or Dawn of Eternal Night and Annihilation of Planet Earth and the Beginning of Merciless Damnation.
That was 3 albums you just said, right?
Nope, that was 1.
Oof. Take notes.
It doesn't get more pretentious than that, but it's also like, I don't know. It's fun. It's often shortened just to Petrodragonic Apocalypse.
Like you do, you know?
Like you do. I'm a big fan of these guys. Like really, like for a band that is as prolific as they are, they don't miss. There's certain albums that might not be your bag, and that's cool. They change around a lot. But to say that they've got a bad record when sometimes they release 4 or 5 a year and they just don't have a bad record, like that's borderline miraculous.
Yeah, it's like there is going to be a stinker in there. I fully believe that eventually they're going to come out flat sometime, but they have yet to prove me wrong in, counting on my hands, 26 studio albums.
Yeah.
26 for
in
26.
Like 4 years. There's so many. There's so many albums.
Yeah, literally from 2022 on, you're talking, this is album number 8 since 2022.
Yeah.
Like these are Hall of Fame numbers, no matter what sport you play.
And it's their first of 2024.
Right. And maybe not their last. Who knows?
Yeah, right. We don't know yet. Anyway, love it. Listen to it. It's cool.
Yeah, no arguments here. You're the one who got me into this band in the first place. And I still appreciate it to this day because, man, they just hit.
It's a good time.
So that covers the album side of the house. I know that we are going to hear several hits and probably a few misses from the charting single side of the house. Dan, by all means, I'm more curious. I mean, I'm not ever uncurious, but for some reason this month I feel like could go in so many different directions. So I'm curious what your thoughts were.
I'm more curious to find out what you thought was going to be up here and talk about, because I will admit I do not have any repeat songs. I have no repeat artists.
Really?
Interesting.
Yes. So who were you expecting?
I honestly was expecting, just from what I've seen and what I know, I was expecting half of this to be Sabrina Carpenter.
Or at least
September.
A couple tracks.
September.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought Espresso and Please, Please, Please were earlier.
Yeah, that's what we talked about earlier.
Oh, got it. That was back in July.
Were there maybe there were other singles too, because I could have sworn
more so. Yeah. Maybe even earlier. I can't remember when Espresso seems
it was
like
a while ago. Yeah,
a while ago. Might have started the summer with it.
Yeah, maybe.
You'll have to wait for that.
I thought Please, Please, Please was more recent though.
You'll have to wait for the. Of course, I don't have the full Excel up.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah,
let's talk about what you do have.
Yeah,
what I do have So we'll start with an honorable mention, which comes from someone who got a lot of love last month on the list, Chappelle Roan. And we wanted to know what, I mean, I'm sure we were all asking. We wanted to know what she would sound like showing off her vocal power and putting some elegance into it. So, boom, Pink Pony Club, right? Done. And the more I listened to it, the more that I got Kate Bush vibes off of it. And that's a really good place to be.
Yeah,
for sure. An earworm, if there was one.
Yes. So we move on to number 3. And I'm pretty sure we talked about the record. We talked about Charlie XCX's Brat at some point over the summer.
Yeah, we
I
did.
thought so.
For sure.
And her going full on club on that one. And in the process, gave us the hot, sweaty single we've been missing this summer and probably for the last few, I think. At the very least to the pandemic summer, either way. Coming in at number 3 is the flirty, playful, and driving Guess, the remix with Billie Eilish. I mean, if you have to ask what this song is, it is all electro dance power. It is all designed to not just get you moving, but get you grinding. And that is exactly, there's no hide. That's exactly what it's supposed to be for. I mean, it opens with Charlie prodding us to guess what color underwear she's wearing, and then telling us why we should guess. And then Billie Eilish comes in to turn the innuendo up to 11 and reinforce the song's strong messages of sexual empowerment while also keeping things playful. But there is no dodging where we're going here. I mean, the chorus, you had to try it, bite it, lick it, spit it, pull it to the side, and get all up in it. Trust me, it works much better when she does it in the song.
I would hope so.
Right? But there is something, I don't know how else to put it, just cool about a track like this. It's hot and directly in your face, and there's no mystery to what we're doing here. And it's probably best taken whilst out at a club. I mean, sure, probably in your early 20s, slamming shots well past the 3 of our bedtimes. But musically, it does everything that a driving dance track needs to do. Throw buzzy bass all over the place with a hammering beat, the appropriately placed string stabs in the chorus, nothing overly complicated, but everything there to make an impact. And sometimes a good track is made good by doing all the right things and not overcomplicated things. Don't overthink shit. The same can be said of Sexy Bangers, which is what the Guest remix is.
I have not heard, I should have heard more from this album, considering that this, by all accounts, was the album of the summer and, spawned the de facto song of the summer, or at least one of them. From the sounds of it, I guess could be right up there in that same pantheon as well.
Yes.
You could definitely throw it as the party song of the summer. I still think Kendrick has the song of the summer and possibly the song of the year, and we're gonna that's in a different mind space than this.
Yeah, that song is going to be so hard to top, and hopefully we'll be hearing a lot of it in January or February, whichever month the damn Super Bowl happens.
Yeah, it'll be February. I know Drake's trying to put songs out, but honestly, he should just stop.
Or at least take a break.
No, he should just stop.
Well, that's true, because never mind.
This is pertinent to nothing, but this man is going to have his career killed in front of the largest audience in television history if he does not sit down.
You hate to see it.
I don't know.
I'd care more if he had put out anything worthwhile in the last 4 or 5 years.
That's exactly where I'm at, too.
Well, there's a lot to that one. And that sounds like a whole nother show.
Yeah. Hey, Dan, what else you got on your list?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. You know what? If you followed these top monthly lists for a while, and if you're listening to it now, of course you have, you've also probably noticed that some of the same artists do tend to pop up over and over again near the top, especially the ones that continuously put out good music. So not Drake. Or at the very least, the ones that don't take too many musical missteps. You do always have to leave yourself an out for that because, sometimes you do trip over your own feet. It's fine. It happens to the best of us. But one of my consistent top finishers has been Megan Thee Stallion. And I've given numerous reasons why she deserves that spot in the past. And she continues to do so with the 4th single off Megan, featuring Japanese rap icon Yuki Chiba. No, I didn't expect to write that sentence either. Mamushi is the number 2 song of August. First, you're always going to score points for me if you put out a bilingual song and it doesn't sound hacky as all get out. They both throw out lines in English and Japanese. And Megan's confidence actually translates really well into another language. I mean, her big line is "Watashi wa star," which translates to "I'm a star." So it's just right. I mean, it's just right in the middle of the bullseye. Also, bonus points for working a Tetris metaphor into your verses. Also, that's always going to help your score. Everything here hits in a rapid fire staccato style in front of a similar yet simple beat, accented with minor piano chords throughout. The subject matter is no surprise here, obviously. Megan's a star and is here to tell you why. But when done in her style, that's a topic that still feels fresh. And finally, this track made me want to seek out more Chiba's work. If he's this interesting in a feature, the rest of his out should be worth a listen.
It's basically just flex. It's basically just flex. The whole song is just, whether you're listening to the English lyrics that talk about what you would expect, big cars, Hermes bags, diamonds, etc. The Japanese lyrics talk about the same exact thing. And it's beautiful. There's, like you said, the confidence is really the key indicator here. And you have two people who are so confident within themselves, who play off of each other with such a confidence. And it just shows. Like it's hard to have this much swagger in one song with 100 people on it, much less two.
Right. And again, you just kind of read about the concept and you're like, that seems like that's not gonna mesh well, but there's just like a vocal chemistry that works really well.
Absolutely. And it fits in with some of the motif of some of the song titles too, with the hiss and rattle, and boa, more of the snake themes. Mamushi is a Japanese venomous snake. So Megan is everything and is also on brand.
And I can't now get out of my head the insane idea of a Megan Thee Stallion and Melt Banana collaboration.
You heard it. I know y'all are listening. Melt, Megan, make it happen. We can be the conduit. We can get you in the studio together. Just
come on. Somebody's people can call somebody and just make this happen.
Please.
Dan?
Yeah, I know. I knew down to the songs that probably someone should have stopped from happening. I get it.
Need to be the bearer of bad news.
And I can start with the dishonorable mention. And I still do feel kind of bad because she always ends up down here. But there should be something very telling about a track when your opinion on it can start with, well, it's certainly not the worst thing she's done. And usually that's, enough to put something in the middle of a month's list, and we never really have to talk about it. But Meghan Trainor has a way of making her mid so much worse than that. So the dishonorable mention is Whoops. And look, the problem is, to be honest, this breakup / fuck you track is not the worst blend of throwback vocals and generic modern pop production she's ever put out. But it's not the best, and far from the early tracks that garnered her current place in the pop ethos. It's there on a record that is there. Like everything I've heard off of Timeless is that there's concepts there, and there's flashes of the songwriter that everyone talks about, but then you get to the execution, and it's severely lacking.
That tracks.
Actually, yeah, all the way through.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just pop by numbers, and the template is bad, and the output is going to be, at best, it's going to be mid.
It was pop by numbers in the 60s when we first came up with this concept. Yeah. Or depending on the single, the 90s when they first came up with that concept.
Yeah. And did it much better than Megan is doing in 2024.
That's the problem, is I have enough, I've consumed enough of that I can go to and point to, like, my future husband or you.
Throw a dart at her catalog, dude. That's
right.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Well, if that wasn't at the very bottom, what do you think was worse?
Nah. Well, my first thought about the song, I put it number 20, was also that it was extremely mid. In fact, an extremely mid girls just want to have fun. But I don't think that it quite explains enough about the Kid Leroy's girls. I mean, the big problem is that the Kid Laroi is on the song, and I have just never liked his vocals. So, I mean, sure, that's probably a bias there. But also, the lyrics might talk about the fun a woman can have when feeling a new relationship out and also being her own woman in said relationship. But there is absolutely next to nothing in the song to back up that synopsis. Like, I had to read someone else's synopsis to figure out that's what this song was supposed to be about. The beat's fine. It's nothing special. The vocals, well, they're the Kid Laroi's. So thin and weak to my ear. And the lyrics say plenty without actually saying much of anything at all. I've seen the song referred to as flat in multiple places. And yes, but I don't think that's descriptive enough. It's a song that is more akin to a rice cake. There's a structure here. And from the outside, it looks like it's together. And it could possibly hold some nutrition within it. But when any kind of force is placed upon it, it collapses into dust. And if you consume it, there is not much there but air and the faint flavor of something that could be desirable.
That was deeper than it had any right to be.
That is deeper than anyone has probably put into a Kid Laroi song.
It's definitely deeper thought than he put into it.
It shows.
As I'm just trying to wrap my head around like all of these lyrics, but one particular lyric that jumps out at me, which is baby, you a 10 and the one for real.
That
He's missing some words in that sentence. Let's diagram it and see what he needs to add.
I mean, damn it, I'll get the whiteboard. Here's the thing, though.
Flew perfect.
That lyric, if we were going to go ahead and start ranking some of the worst pickup line compliments in recent songs, that drops below Drake. Actually, I think that is worse formed than if you were a twin, I would still choose you.
Ooh,
the old standby.
That's kind of the floor we're working with here, and that might have slid under the boards.
We could have that conversation, but I don't know.
We should probably write that down so we have that conversation. In the
we should write that down so we have that conversation. But while we ponder that, what slid under the floorboards of that one to be even worse?
Well, you know what? August's penultimate spot of suck actually belongs to a pair of artists.
Ooh.
Because I feel if you're going to be so lazy and make the same song twice, I'm not going to bother to give you a separate spot on this list. There was a lot of alliteration that was unintended. Coming in at number 21 are Mark Amber with Belong Together and Miles Smith with Stargazing. Which the biggest point I have on this is I defy you to listen to these two songs and then tell me which is which. Both of these are something from the mid 2010s that I can't put my finger on. Like it could be a stripped down Coldplay song, or it could be a new Lumineers single, or it could be something upbeat from Passenger, or it could be the X-Ambassadors if they got on Zoloft. These songs both call back to that period of alt rock or alt pop where it seemed like every artist's goal was to get their song played in a car or Apple commercial. So it's perfectly constructed to pep you up just enough to make a purchase. I'm sure these songs are all over a number of Spotify playlists with titles like Sunny Thoughts or Daily Dopamine or Just Be Happy for 10 Minutes, you goddamn millennials. They're not really empty songs, or at least not as empty as Girls. There's something in the writing, and there's probably some level of emotion in the apparent revival of stomp and holler into the pop landscape. But instead of being the complete lack of caloric value that Girls is, they're more like a candy bar. Sugary, sure, and will give you a hit of energy, but when that wears off, you realize there was absolutely nothing in your pick-me-up meal, and you're just left wanting the next actual meal, even more with the hunger pangs of regret just right around the corner. I started with an idea. It became a theme. I couldn't get away from it.
No. I'm not mad at it. It's perfect. No notes.
I'm trying to remember.
I say, are you listening in the background trying to figure out if these are actually the same song or not?
Well, it reminded me of that bit from Dangerous Minds when they were talking about the Dylan contest, which it was, is this a lyric from Bob Dylan or is this a lyric from Dylan Thomas? And I was kind of playing that game to myself, looking at the lyrics of these two songs. And even though I had them both in front of me, I still lost. And I don't know how they are. I still don't know for sure they're different. I still don't believe Genius.com that they are two different songs.
Allegedly, two different songs and two different artists. And I will tell you, one of them has more of a George Ezra feel in his vocal delivery, but again, couldn't tell you which one.
Like, just do it differently. Just do it slightly differently, guys. One of you, either of you, both of you. And then you won't be here the next time you put out some bullshit like this.
Nah, it's okay. They're not going to put out stuff that charts again.
Got him.
You said the same thing about Ray Shremmerd.
Yeah, where have they been for the past 4 years?
Yeah, but they did have another one the next year.
They did have a pretty big one.
Yeah.
That's true. It wasn't any better than their necessarily.
Oh, no.
Their
There was another one.
There was another one. That's true. They did do another one. I have to give them that. They almost did Firefest.
Oh, that would have been epic.
That's not a resume booster.
I was going to say, take that for what you will. Did you know they let the guy? Did you know they let that guy out of prison a couple years ago?
Hey, didn't he try to do it again?
He's trying,
2025 apparently.
Yeah. Okay.
That's good. Yeah.
I'm morbidly curious. I might have to take a flyer on that one.
Actually, unintentionally mentioning Firefest makes me think that they could probably get the artist at the bottom of the list here.
Oh.
Pretty sure by next year, he'll be easy for them to book.
Is it Jack Harlow?
No, it's not Jack Harlow. It's another good one, though.
Continue.
But join me as we go wandering through the woods to get there, shall we?
Excellent.
So the Starland Vocal Band. Because I'm not done with that reference either. But we're not that far off. British reggae pop band UB40.
Okay.
Has long drawn a certain level of criticism because the vast majority of their hits, which there were a lot more than I remember, are someone else's songs. They were masters of a cover, and that brought Ali and the Boys a ton of international success, starting with their worldwide breakthrough Red Red Wine, a Neil Diamond track. They'd follow that up with the version of I Got You, Babe with Chrissy Hynde. Al Green's Here I Am, Come Take Me. The Temptations, The Way You Do the Things You Do. Elvis's Can't Help Falling in Love. And then two I don't even remember when they did Light My Fire and the Manhattans Kiss and Say Goodbye. I tell you all of that to tell you that trends, as we all know, often come around again, and the same goes for music. So I have to ask, can MGK actually have a hit with anything that isn't a rewrite of someone else's song? I mean, his breakthrough hit was a reimagining of Fastball's second hit, Out of My Head, with Bad Things. Then his only other top 40 hit was a pop punk thing with Black Bear, so ew. And then the song that wasn't original, but it's the one that got him ethered by Eminem and pretty much ran him out of the rap game. And admittedly, it felt like he had more, but he hasn't. But fuck it, I already started the comparison, and we can draw another one after. I explained that his latest single with Jelly Roll, Lonely Road, is the worst charting single of August. This one's extrapolation is the chorus of John Denver's Country Roads. But then we can draw the MGK comparison to Post Malone, who decided that he actually could do country better than he was doing everything else. And while it's not some huge musical achievement, he's actually kind of right about that one. He could keep making essentially middle-of-the-road country and have a fine career doing so. MGK's venture into it, however, will probably have a harder time making that transition if that is where he's going. First and foremost, this, by the way, is a Jelly Roll song in tone, in composition, in subject matter, and MGK is just kind of on it. It covers relationship struggles, using alcohol to cope, and the issue of addiction in general. So everything that has those Jelly Rolls record or upcoming record just with MGK on it for some reason. He actually claimed in an Instagram post that this song took 2 years, 4 key changes, and 8 studios to make this giant pile of underachievement. And if that is truly the case, man, they should have never gotten out of the first studio. But this also feels like the last gasp of an artist who is trying to stay relevant by finding a new audience. His third audience, by the way. But if this is the way he's trying to go country, this effort will fizzle out faster than Aaron Lewis's relevancy in the country sphere.
Ouch.
Or MGK's relevancy in the rock sphere. Now, since we've been working with the food metaphors here, there is something here. But unlike a 0-calorie snack that gives you nothing, or a gloopy pile of sucrose that gives you just enough energy to flame out by, this song is a bottle of Malort. Bitter, dirty, and something you can keep way the fuck over there.
Chicago?
Yes.
Actually had some a few days ago, in fact.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Correct answer. It never fails in the way that it always fails, which is also a fitting metaphor for MGK.
Right?
He's the Malort of pop music.
Oh, I wish I would have thought of that line.
I mean, you kind of did. You brought us there.
Yeah, so we were there. We were floating there.
Yeah, you put it on the tee for sure. I would love to be the Billboard writer Megan Garvey, who proclaimed MGK, then known as his full government name of Machine Gun Kelly, as, quote, the new prince of pop punk back in March of 2022. Maybe time for Baxies on that article.
That lasts like a record and a half, didn't it?
If that.
Didn't he have something to do with Willow at that point?
Yeah. And Travis Barker's in there somewhere for some reason.
Yeah.
They turned out okay. What happened to him?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I could use some more good music.
I do have one more bit of that. So remember when I started writing and then stopped and then never deleted the thing that was supposed to connect back to the idea that I had but didn't write down, but I'm going to just pretend that I did anyway. So remember a few minutes ago when I said that sometimes songs rightfully rise over their reputation as the next big thing on social media?
Yeah.
Remember how we've been talking? Okay. Yeah. Just pretend that was an idea that I've been talking about.
Oh, yeah. That thing we were talking about.
Totally.
Yeah.
But also remember how we've been talking about songs as food for some reason this entire time. Apparently, I do actually still really want waffles. But regardless, it's time for something that was initially presented as a gimmick. It got its rightful praise, though, as a choice sirloin. It is the best new charting single of August. Big Dogs from Muhammad Humankind. That's not that. I blew it looking at it right away. I'll get it eventually. Yes, this song got its traction because of the music video going viral and the opening lines being used on so many TikTok videos, and that's fine. But when you take the actual song in and then left in just awe of how hard it goes, it's something that I have long praised as desirable in my hip-hop. But you throw in the admiration that I have for a certain era of rap, specifically the Southern sound of the early 2000s, and even more specifically Project Pat, who gets both a direct shout out as well as a cadence shout out, so to speak. You can just dissect this track in several ways. You can chop it and screw it, if you will. But there's a few simple truths that make it worth your time. First, this guy brings a unique sound that blends his influences from his American upbringing as well as his South Asian side. Second, the verses are absolute fire. And third, everything goes so hard. His delivery to the beat, to the synths weaving through the pounding bass. It cannot be ignored once you hear it. So this is the point where you should go do that. We'll wait. It's fine. We promise.
Where should they go to do that, though?
I mean, wherever. You know what you should probably do is roll on over to fairlykickass.com, where the entire playlist of everything that we've been talking about tonight will be, and then scroll down to the end of it for the number one song.
There you go.
Like a professional. Yeah, that is a thing that the listeners can do. That's a thing, frankly, that the listeners should do. That's you, by the way, listener. You should also, after you do that, or before or during, I'm not here to stop you from multitasking. Hit up Fairly KickAss on all of our social media endeavors as well, being TikTok, Threads, Instagram, and Twitter. We're Fairly KickAss everywhere, and we're Fairly KickAss anywhere as well. Search for us don't search for us in your email, because that's not how email works. Today I learned about technology. Email us without searching, fairlykickass@gmail.com, for any more personal correspondence, aka sponsorships. We like your money. And as mentioned, wherever you get your podcast in the entire world, you can find us. Just search for Fairly KickAss there. We have our old stuff on Spotify if you want to check it out there. We have all of our new stuff everywhere else, more coming by the week. So make sure to subscribe, like, follow, whatever you have to do on your podcast listening apparatus of choice, and you'll find us. And I guess we should find the exits, unless the two of you have any parting words for the people.
Don't bother listening to the new Tones and I.
There you have it. Tones and I, you're on the outs.
You will find the exits back and to the left, and back and to the left.